Eric
totally with
Petz.
my kids, but they're not interested.
That's fair. Well, when I met you, Mr. Petz, no kids at all, and you were single.
It was a long time ago, my friend. I think the first time we met was it's 2011, 10 or
Oh my
11,
gosh.
something like
Wow.
that. 14, 15 years ago. It's been a minute.
Yeah, yeah. And so you were running your own, actually, at that point, you were working with someone
Hmm.
doing short sales, and then you said,
Hmm.
fuck this, I can do this on my own. Um,
That's pretty much. Yeah.
I didn't know anything about short sales, so when I met you, it was great because I learned about them, but I also learned I didn't want to do what you do because I wouldn't do it as well. Because the way you used to manage the deals, I mean, we've done dozens and dozens of deals, and it's because you manage them so well. You get in there, make it happen, and it's been great having this teamwork with you and this partnership with you on the team. It really has been.
Yeah, it's been I mean, like I said, it was 15 years, a long time ago, right? The market's changed. That market is mostly gone. Something, every once in a while I'll get a call to help somebody, but for the most part, it's gone. I've started doing different types of work. But when we met 15 years ago, yeah, I was working with a company called Access Loss Mitigation. I was in their
Mhm.
sales department. I was the general sales manager doing presentations, teaching local agents how to do short sales. We were a
Mhm.
nationwide company, and so we had around 2,000 short sales we were negotiating at a time. It was a pretty big outfit.
Wow.
And we got bought out basically by a servicer to do servicing. So when that happened, I didn't have a function anymore. You don't need sales in that environment. So I left, and I took all
Hmm.
the managers with me and started my own company where I met you at MRM and Associates.
Hmm.
We were in house with a lot of different real estate brokerages, and we closed a lot of short sales in LA. And then I met you through that process, and we did a lot of deals together. We did some very challenging deals with some very
Yeah.
challenging people. And yeah, some very challenging
So,
people.
so we'll get to a couple of those for sure. I will just say this sincerely. I'm really glad I met you because it's been a great friendship because love how just open and so transparent and colorful and fun and smart you are. But I also love that we make so much money together. It's been great, and now to be able to support our families. So this has been a great relationship, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the years to come will be because you always seem to transform and evolve. So we'll see what that means.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of different stuff. But to get to some of the more interesting kind of topics, I would say, like some of the more interesting scenarios that we found ourselves in and that I found myself in. I got into short sales, like you mentioned. I got into short sales in 2008 when I moved to Los Angeles.
Hmm.
I was a veteran from the Air Force, and I was moving here to try and make it in the music industry, right? And I found my way into real estate by accident, by interviewing with the wrong people, and then ultimately that led to a job, which led to another job, which led to me opening my own company where we met. And when I remember one of the first deals I worked with you, there was this gentleman who was adamant that he knew better than everybody. I mean, I feel like if you work in real estate, you have this experience at least once where there's somebody who feels like they feel very sincerely and adamantly that they know more than you or that they know
Hmm.
better. Nah, I don't want to make the mistakes that you're telling me about, blah, blah, blah. And this
I know
guy,
where you're going.
huh?
I know where you're going.
Yeah, you remember this guy. I
Oh,
think
I
this was
remember.
one
We're
of
not
our
going to
first
mention the names,
transactions.
but go on though. You tell the story. I'll contribute as needed.
So this guy he was an older guy, and he had a bunch of personal liens on his house, judgments. Like, this guy had borrowed money from everyone, and he had a
Hmm.
stack of liens and judgments, and he was basically just trying to skirt as much as he could.
Hmm.
Just take advantage of everyone. I mean, that's basically what it seemed like. He was kind of like, that was his kind of MO, right? Just do what he
Yeah,
could.
but the thing that got me was he would do it with a smile, with
I
like such
know.
freaking
He
sincerity. I'm
knew
going like,
full well that he was yanking your chain long term, but he just didn't. He had zero empathy. He just didn't care. It was about whatever he could get. That's all that mattered. So
hmm.
I remember he was like, I remember talking to him, and it sounded like he wasn't sure he was going to move forward with it when it was all said and done. And then I was like, look, it's very complicated, but if I can negotiate everything and get everyone to agree, then it's in your best interest. You would sell then, right? He's like, yeah, no, I don't think he believed that it was possible because it was such a
Uh-huh.
mess. But lo and behold, 2 months later, the whole thing was negotiated out. All parties were satisfied. Everything was
Hmm.
lined up. I got the first to give money to the second, to the third, the fourth. Everything was
Wasn't there like six
yeah,
liens or something?
I mean, I think he had credit card liens too. Like it was just a mess, you know, it was a mess. And it was a nice house. It was like I can't remember the price. It was like 1.5 in
Oh, I
2000.
wish I would have bought that house
I mean, it was like the price, you know, I mean, it was very, now I don't even,
on a huge piece of land too.
yeah, it was a really nice house, nice piece of land and everything. Anyway, so he just, you know, he like, no, I'm not going to go to foreclosure. And then that was it, right? He had a foreclosure coming up because everyone had that in those days. If you had a short sale, that probably meant you had a foreclosure on the way. So we were just waiting for that. And I pushed it back a couple months. And that's ultimately what this was all about. He just wanted to get it pushed and pushed and pushed. And then it came finally time for the sale date. I'm like, you got to sign so we can close this deal. And he refused. And lo and behold, they foreclosed, you know, and I mean, I can understand from his perspective. He just wanted to ride out as much as possible. But at the same time, I had negotiated these liens so that they wouldn't follow him. Like they were resolved.
Right.
Resolve these. This was not a lien release. It was a lien and loan release. It was both. It was a combination of everything. The whole thing would have wiped the slate clean. I get to get taxes. It was a mess. And he just was, no, I'm not going to do it. You know,
he thought somehow that he was still going to be able to keep it and get money because he would come to me and say, hey, I'll do it, but only if I can get some money. So maybe the buyer can give me money. I said, you can't do that. That's not the way it works. So you have to get that out of your mind. There's certain things that you legally can do. We'll tell you what you legally can do. You get advice of an attorney, and then we can go from there. But he just kept wanting to push it and push it and push it. Always had an angle. And then, oh my gosh, back then, a deal like in the $1.5 million range 15 years ago, you know, a new dad and everything. And that money would have come in so handy. And he loses it on the courtroom steps. And he calls me and apologizes and stuff. And I was like, I just can't talk to you because the way he did it was just, it was unscrupulous.
But I feel like that's unfortunately not uncommon in that world. You know, I have so many stories about clients trying to do weird things, shady stuff, removing piping from walls before the deal closes. Like just, you know, all sorts of, I mean, you know, anything you could think of. I mean, I remember a story with a lady who, you know, she had, you know, one of the things I had to do when I was taking on these deals was like assess like what happened, like, you know, like how did you get from A to Z? When did you buy the house? These other loans that you took out, like what are those? Where did they come from? What did you do?
Right.
Like how are you positioned? Because it's going to change how I negotiate this deal with the bank. So I remember going through all that, and I remember this one lady was like, "How did you know what you took out a $500,000 loan on this house that was not worth $500,000 more than the loan she took? She went way underwater the moment she took that money. Like what did you do with all that? It was like 2 years ago. Where'd it go? She's like, oh, I bought a Rolls Royce, and then I bought I got a new Rolex, and I got where are these things now? I gave them back. I sold them, or I got it repossessed, or, you know, like they didn't buy the whole thing. They had a loan for half and they lost. It just, oh my God. It was story after story that was some version of that, because then they're handing out loans like candy to anyone who asked for it. They're like, do you have a
It was crazy.
Here's $500,000. You know, appraisal needed, you know, all
you have to do, you can state your income, state your assets, and I'm going like, so I can just get $1 million in a week, and so what?
Yep.
Yeah, it was nuts. I was newer to the industry. I was thinking this can't possibly last. What am I missing here? And then slowly I started to see what was happening in the house of cards was starting to fall, and and all the people that took money and that were so greedy during that process. It was really sad.
Speaking of greed, I mean, you know, it was working on the side that I was working on and the volume I was working on. You know, I was starting to talking to investors about like buying tapes, like, you know, doing like larger volume stuff, doing very like bigger plays. And so I was starting to learn about the background of some of these things, like with like syndicated tranches for you know, syndicated portfolios, because they ran out of loans to sell in the stock market. So they started syndicating portfolios and then attaching them to the existing portfolios as performance changed. That would then change this syndicated portfolio, because there was no more money. Like, where's the money going to come from? Like, or there's no assets to buy. So it's just like, let's create these new things. It was just such a crazy house of cards, and it was all greed. It was like just, you know, bankers just looking for ways to increase their profits without any sort of long-term vision. That crashed. I mean, it was awful. I mean, you know, if you've been in the industry since then, like if you started after 2013, this is all foreign to you. But if you started before that, I mean, it was the whole.
That was a weird ride. It was a weird ride. And I'm looking back and I'm thinking, those loans initially, and this is just me speculating, were meant for guys probably like us who we're independent contractors and we spend a lot of money. We write a lot of things off. So it's not like it's not like we have the same kind of I don't know. We don't have the same portfolio to look at. We don't have the same checking accounts to look at and everything. So you get this knowing because you can look at it and break it down and see this guy can afford it, but according to this, he doesn't fit. So it was just a crazy time. I mean, I wish I would have bought like 10 houses then.
Yeah, right. That's the hindsight. I mean, I've talked to quite a few people who.
Yeah.
There was a guy that I met quite a few people over the years, investors who took advantage of this, and some of them just. I mean,
and lenders.
I remember talking to someone recently, actually, who was telling me about his heyday. He's a title officer up here in La Crescenta area where I live, and he was buying houses for $25K in Joshua Tree, just picking them up off the foreclosure auction. Like, every month he'd pick up another one, and he's like 25 of these houses. I mean,
wow.
It's a crazy amount of passive rental income that he bought like for nothing and put $5,000 into each one and then rented them. And like,
oh gosh,
I
don't. Yeah, looking back. Hey, before we go on to your next story, I think I owe you a thank you. We were on and get yourself centered in the frame a little bit. I like both parts of your face. What's up? Because we were on a thread with the team and I said, you guys, we need more content. So we're going to have to do something. And I'm going to do like real estate pro tips with Scott Nell. And you guys basically tore me a new one saying, that's so boring. My gosh, Scott, everyone's doing that. Oh, you, Scott, you're going to do that? And then someone, gosh, who was it? You puts in the thread, hey, you know what, man? Why don't you do real estate hell with Scott Nell? It'd be all these fucking crazy stories that everyone does. And you spelled out exactly what the show should look like. And we're laughing and joking. And about 3 or 4 minutes in, we're going like, wait a freaking minute. This is a great idea. This is like actually a great idea. And then you continue to expand on it. And so it came because we were messing around. You came up with an idea, and then you actually expanded on it. And so thank you, man. I mean, this has been a really good ride. What episode are we on, did you say?
Well, this episode is episode 69. I specifically asked and requested to be on this episode so that we could do that together. It's my lifelong dream and goal to fulfill that fantasy with you, Scott. And this episode, we're going to do it virtually. And I really appreciate you sticking with me through this.
We're already doing it.
I know we are. I know. I'm feeling it already. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast with you. But it is funny. I have a hard time not giving you a hard time. It's like it's in my soul to rib you and give you shit because you act like it doesn't affect you because you're like, but inside you're like a good, genuinely ethical person. So sometimes it does, but you act as if it doesn't, and I appreciate you for that. So I have to continue trying to break you down is my goal. So I'm gonna keep working on it. And that title of this was that. It was just me giving you a hard time. And then I thought, oh, that's kind of a fun idea. And then I just kept creating more and more content associated with it until eventually you had no choice but to take the team's suggestion to do it.
Oh,
part of me just wanted to see what would happen if you did. But now, you did it. And now it's happened. And here we are.
That's hysterical. But the thing about it is that when you joke with me, it's just like, yeah, I can be sensitive to certain things, but the reality is I know where your heart is. So to me, it's kind of like I love having these conversations with you, or going out and drinking with you, or watching. You know what? Let's take a moment. Talk about you're a singer, but you're not just a singer. You really are a dynamite singer, great performer and musician, which I didn't even know because I always know you as the businessman, and you're a really fucking smart businessman. You really are. My thought with you is anything you do put your mind to, you're going to kick ass at. That's just really how I look at you because you're that kind of guy. But I had no idea. I was thinking like, I'm probably going to go listen to him do some karaoke. And I was like, no, it's not at all. So tell us about your band.
Sure. Yeah. I've been singing since I was a kid. I did competitions in high school. I classically trained, a lot of Italian arias, German arias, that kind of stuff. And then but I've always loved like rock. I've always been in bands, played guitar, bass, all that stuff. I moved to LA for that purpose. That was my really what I wanted to do the most. And I remember when I moved here after the military in my mid-20s, and I remember going and listening to some local musicians, and being like, holy shit, the people here are fucking ridiculous. Like, the people who move here for music they are really good. There's some really talented people who, at the end you realize, like, it's just motivation. Like, if you just keep cranking away, eventually you'll find your way through. But
Right.
God, it's a grind. It's a Hollywood entertainment. That whole industry is really tough, and you realize it really fast when you start digging in. I mean, you know exactly what I'm talking about, Scott. It's a tough industry to survive in and to function in. And so I kind of gave up the passion for that. I got into real estate, had a job, started working, built a family, blah, 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 right? You end up like doing all the other things. In the last 2 years, I started going back doing open mics again and just doing, getting back into the passion of the things that I love. I feel
it's great. You're working the balance. What's great is you put family first. You have a great career. You all now have another career that you're doing with your wife. And then you get to go out and do music, bro. You're doing it right. You're just doing it right. I love it,
Scott. Yeah, it's been doing the things, and it's like I feel like I'm always want to come and do the next thing really fast, but when I like going through this process in the last 15 years, having multiple businesses, it's like you just do one thing at a time, and then eventually you look up and you're like, oh shit, okay, I had a successful career, I've had businesses, I've done all these things, I've got, what about my passions? Where did that come from? Where did that go? And I had a fire under my ass after my second child was born, and I was like, I gotta get back to this thing that I love. But yeah, so I have a band. It started out of an open mic. I started picking up players, some of the better players that showed up. And there's some amazing players that just show up and play every once in a while.
Name of your band.
The name of my band is gloriously titled Consensual Donkey. You can find us at Rock the Donkey on Instagram. You can see all my lovely clips and our amazing flyers that the drummer builds, because he's director of marketing for a large tech firm. So he makes beautiful flyers. And he has a lot of material to work with, so they come out great. But we're a band. We're in like an 80s, 90s, 70s band. We do like Bowie, The Doors, like all that stuff. And I love to perform. I'm a bit of a showman. I have a public.
A bit of a showman. No. When you got up there,
I like sitting in the audience on people's laps and singing to people until they blush. That's fun. That's the joy of life.
You let loose. You were so good that 2 girls had a fight over you, as I recall. 2 girls were going, he's mine.
But I will take your interpretation as truth. Why not?
Yes.
I mean, everything's up for interpretation these days. It seems why that could be true as well. Man, it was so funny, because I remember I got off stage, we were talking, your brother was there, we were all chatting about stuff, and these 2 ladies, I don't know, were just fist fighting in the bar. Like, okay. That's where we're at. That's what's happening tonight.
I thought it was staged or something. I remember looking over at you and going, is this real?
Scott, you should appreciate me more, because those are the things I'm willing to do for you.
That's what. So I remember another deal that we did together where you called me up, and this is a big blessing to me that you brought for me. And you said, hey, there's this property in one of the beach communities. Oh, yeah. You should go check it out.
Yeah.
And this is what the seller is saying. This is going on, this is going on, this is going on, and all this.
She had a myriad of problems.
Yeah, a myriad. And I remember going by and looking at this and going like, okay, they totally let this property go. But, if we cut down these 12-foot weeds in the back, I'm pretty sure we're going to see the ocean. And then we ended up bringing it, and I said, look, I can't. I brought in an investor, and I said, look, you're going to have to do all the confirmation, and this is your own, because this is what they think. So you're going to have to do your own due diligence. And he did, and at the end of it, put in an offer, and we ended up selling it, and we made so much money. And it was interesting because this person was just thinking it was falling down the hill, but my professional opinion coming in representing a buyer, I don't think that's what's happening here. I don't think this is falling down the hill. I think there's some stress cracks and this and that. So that was a really fun one.
It was, yeah. I remember I got a call from someone who I had previously worked with, another real estate agent, and he was like, "Hey, I have a friend who needs help, and so she's a long ways from here. Maybe you can help her. I don't know what's going to happen. She was working on a loan mod originally, and that didn't work out because she had no income. Big surprise, it didn't work out. But yeah, I mean, it just, I knew that was where it was headed. We did all the steps, did everything we could to try and save the house. It just didn't, there was no possibilities. And she was also like adamant from the day I met her, this house is falling down. Everything is wrong with it. You can see cracks here. The foundation's breaking. The roof's going to cave in over here. I'm sure, you can see, you walk through the house. I mean, it needed maintenance, but it was actually in pretty good shape. The house was fairly modern. It was a nice house, like the oven wasn't really working all that well. And she was like, it's leaking gas. The house is going to explode. I think she had some serious mental health challenges. Like I don't know exactly what was going on with her, but man, it was, she was determined, and she hadn't paid in many months. She was like a year behind in her mortgage payments. She just like, I don't know. It was like, I remember
it seems like she just wanted to get out clean somehow.
She just didn't, it was like, this is a mess. I can't deal with it. So I remember going over there and talking to her, seeing the house, her explaining that it's falling apart, and then immediately calling you and being like, look, this is an opportunity. She's going to definitely tell the appraiser like the worst possible things about this house. And you know what? Before I get to this brings up a point about appraisers. I'm going to give you the greatest secret of short sales, my true personal secret that I would never tell anybody, but I'll tell you.
Okay, because no one listens to this show anyway. So
yeah, exactly. I'm going to tell you, after thousands of real estate transactions, thousands of short sales, there's a linchpin in the deal, and it's always the same. The appraiser determines everything. The appraiser themselves determines everything. And when she was telling me all the problems with this property, I knew full well that she was going to regurgitate all of this to the appraiser because she never left the house. She was going to follow me around the way she followed me around and explain all the problems with the house. So I knew I didn't need to get involved. It would naturally happen. So I was like, all right, then she's not going to get anything. I'm going to make the bank eat shit because I love doing that. I mean, I made the bank lose probably somewhere around $400 million over the course of all the deals I've been involved with.
That's all?
Yeah, a lot of money. I made him eat a lot of shit, which is really a joy to my heart. So in this case, they were going to lose like $600,000. It was a huge chunk of money, and I thought maybe I could make them lose even more if I got a good, deal on it. So I think we wrote the offer at 145, and
I don't even remember.
Oh my God, it was such a great, I think this is what I vividly remember. I remember getting it at that, getting both sides of the deal with you. Like working it together and getting a really good value, working with providing comps to the appraiser because there was really good comps that didn't have ocean views. But like you said, you couldn't see the ocean because there was like trees in the back. So you couldn't see it. So you didn't think that you're like, it's just on the hill and you're just staring at bushes, whatever.
Right.
And then, I got the appraiser to come in. I remember talking to him on the phone, because it was like 2 hours from where I live, and hearing the homeowner in the background being like, "Oh my God, look at this! Look at this!" I'm like, "All right, you're good." Talk to the owner; she's going to walk you through it. And they went through it, and sure enough, I think the value came back at 1.6, and I was able to get like a variance. And they took our, I think we ended up at 1.5. They took our offer, I think, at 1.5. They ate a bunch of shit on the deal. She moved out. I helped her get into a rental. I helped her with the back end of this, got her into a rental that was suitable for her and her family. And, but she was off her rocker. I mean, she would say the craziest things to me. She would start out by saying how wonderful I was and how helpful I was and how she was so grateful that I was helping her with all this stuff so she wasn't homeless. And then immediately follow up by telling me, why am I sucking the investor's dick? And some like really just like extremely profane, vulgar things that you wouldn't like think to say to people normally, but like where like all of a sudden, weird 180s. It was a weird deal, for sure. But at the end of the day, I got her into something that she could afford, and the deal, we made a lot of money.
And you clean the slate. And the reality is that if I come in if I come in with a buyer, it's my job to get the best price we can. And so that's, together we just figured, okay, what is that number that's realistic based on the property? And at the end of it, the numbers just crunched out really, the second leg of it went really well. So
Yeah. Yeah,
thank
it was
goodness.
good. I mean, we've done a lot of deals like that together, and
Hmm.
I've had so many deals working that angle. But that being said, I found myself working using these skills in a different way, working with insurance carriers because surprisingly enough, like when someone's trying to resolve their fire issue, like their fire damage claim on their house, if
Hmm.
their house was burned down or something, I've worked with a couple families in this arena. And recently, fast forward the last 10 years, obviously, short sales died 12 years ago. So since
Hmm.
then, I've done a lot of, traditional real estate. I've done some apartments. I've done, different things
Hmm.
over the years using all that knowledge. And most recently, working with wildfire victims with leases and sales. And so working in that kind of community, I live really close to the Eaton Canyon fires,
Hmm.
right next to Altadena. And so there's a lot of people who are coming, looking in the community that I live in, La Crescenta, looking for houses. And working with people in that space, I've realized that on the insurance side of things, it looks almost identical to a short sale. Like instead of an
Hmm.
appraiser, though, they're using an engineering firm, but the process that they're using is somewhat similar. And that it's like low level bureaucrats who are ultimately moving paper around and
Hmm.
determine and dictate the timing associated with your processing. They determine if they're going to push to get something approved because they can get stuff approved. They can talk to bosses, they can do stuff. They have leverage that they don't always use and often don't want to. So it's like I've
Hmm.
realized that it's very similar in that way. So I've been able to use the skills that I have and transition them working with clients in this space because it's like if I can get an insurance the person running claims on the other end and have a nice conversation with them, have it like a human conversation, get to where do you live, how's life, what's going on
Right.
with you, what are we doing, to make a friend, and then that friend before you know it is hooking you up and getting you sent up 2 levels higher to get something approved so you get the money you need to buy the house you need. So
What's
that's
interesting
been
is
really
that
useful.
to me is that you're being an advocate for the people you're working with because it's like that every deal we talked about, it was your job to go in there and get the short sale approved legitimately. And you did. That's what you did on everything. And then you also went the extra mile to clear out debt and all sorts of things that could have followed them, and you resolved them. So to me, you were being an advocate for people and getting them out so that they could restart. And so then you're really great at it. You really are.
It's been, yeah. I mean, it wasn't something I plan on doing or getting involved with, but when the fires happened, I was determined to get involved in some way,
Hmm.
helping people with leases, buying whatever it is, and that's been really, yeah. It's been a good. Like I did not think that skill would be useful for something else, like working with people at the banks, but it's been very useful in that way. But then, most recently, fast forward through real estate, my wife and I have a psychology business. Um,
Yes.
and, my wife is a psychologist. She's a developmental psychologist here in Montrose.
Hmm.
She has a private practice, Mind Matters Psychology. And her and I, as a team, have built that practice into a group practice.
That's awesome.
And we primarily work with kids with their mental health needs, doing assessments, providing therapy, groups. I mean, that's really what I'm focused on right now and I'm actually going back to school to get my MFT so I can start running groups. But I'm spending a lot of time building out Dungeons and Dragons groups, teaching social emotional learning for kids.
Hmm.
It's a way to get pen and paper, to get off screens, to get away from the traditional norms of education. Like people, there's not really an outlet for this anymore because even when kids play now, often when they get a little older, oftentimes the play involves a screen in some way. It's very
Hmm.
common, and we're realizing this. And I have a background in, like, I'm a total nerd. I'm a super nerd. I grew up a nerd. I always loved D&D and all the
You're
things
the
around
coolest
that.
nerd I know.
Oh my god, I love it. I love nerd stuff. So Star
Hmm.
Wars, I love it. It's great. I
Same.
have a lot of fun in that, and so I played Dungeons and Dragons since I was a kid, and I realized after reading a lot of research on this, because there's been a ton of research on this, that it's a really useful tool to teach kids social and emotional learning. So I know this is totally not related to real estate, but it's a passion of mine, and I'm in the process of setting up a charity to try and generate
I
some
love it.
funds, provide service in different areas outside of the more affluent areas that can afford, to have one-on-one experience or have, put their kids in private groups. So we're looking to, and if you want to check out the website, it's jointheheroesquest.com, jointheheroesquest.com.
Wait, hold on a second. Join the Heroes Quest.com. Okay, so that's awesome. And by the way, when you mentioned it earlier, just like you always do, I was thinking, is he serious or not? But this, once again, no, but once again, you thinking outside the box, and it's very cool because you're thinking of a different way. You have a different way in to help people, and it's really freaking cool that you're using this nerdy side of you. Which to me, when you say nerdy, to me that's a compliment. I love because I'm a nerd at heart myself. And so, but the fact that you think outside the box and you're going to do something like this, because kids need somewhere where they can kind of feel accepted and they can bond and there's things that are interesting and creative to them. And if you don't have that, it's really sad. I mean, it's very lonely. And this is just another way to build a community like that.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's that the one thing that we see often with therapy sessions and talking to other kids is that there's just a lot of the schools are using screens to even communicate with your group partners inside of a school environment. You're on screens instead of books. This is becoming more prevalent now with either some form of an iPad or a MacBook or some version of that. And so there's just not a lot of when you can get kids to focus for 2 hours, like the ages of 10 to 18. I mean, obviously these are broken up in groups, so you don't have 10-year-olds with 16-year-olds,
Right.
They're different stages, but it's kind of, it's that idea. And they sit down and they engage with storytelling. It's like active storytelling. They engage with, you can talk about a lot of scenarios. You can create the story is whatever you make it. It's just like a framework
right.
for a way to communicate. It's a role-playing way to talk to people. If you've never played D&D before, it's literally whatever you decide it is. You make up the story. Like the last campaign I did, the last school was, it was this fun, whimsical story where there's like these goblin inventors that you have to interact with who have all these fun inventions. And then there's these emotional moments where there's anxiety provoking moments where the kids have to negotiate with people and have to interact in a different way, not just fighting your way through scenarios. So all this stuff is just, the concept is social emotional learning. And it's just a way to deal with a very resistant population because kids often in one-on-one therapy do not want to have these conversations. They're very resistant to, they're going through a lot of change. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's just more of a safe way to kind of deal with this stuff. So anyways, yeah, so, it's a passion of mine. I'm really focused on building this, helping people with their real estate needs, helping people helping build this concept and getting it, because we're an after school program inside the schools. We're at the schools.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I love it.
And so we're building, we're probably going to add 4 or 5 more schools in the fall. I mean, I'm in the process of setting those up now. And if you hear this podcast and you live anywhere in the Valley and you have any interest in having this program at your school, hit me up. And I would love to talk with you about what that could look like.
So I got to tell you, that's going to be one of the 3 we post because I just think it's such a great idea. Because we're going to highlight you one week. We choose 3 out of the 5 or 6, and then we'll get to the other ones down the road. I do have one more question, and it is, and I could say it sounds self-serving, but it's not. But it is self-serving. It's nice to have a review, video review, so people can hear. If you wouldn't mind sharing your experience briefly, I mean, just whatever you feel compelled to say, it would be great. I'd love to know because 15 years together, that's a lot of deals. Most people can't stay partnered like you and I have for 15 years. That's a lot of years that we've worked things out.
Yeah. Look, I've known Scott for a long time. Scott and I met 15 years ago working short sales. And if you know anything about short sales, you know that there's a lot of potential ethical quandaries associated with them because you could take advantage of people in a very real way. You can do it on the seller side. You can do it on the buyer side. There's ways to take advantage. And when you do enough of these transactions, it's very obvious what those are. But to Scott's credit, he's always been the most ethical professional I have ever worked with. And I mean that in a very real way. And that's the reason why I'm on his team. Because I'm very ethical. I'm always above board. I don't do things that are illegal, but I have a tendency to walk the gray line because that's sometimes where you got to go to get things done. Scott is he's just above board all the time. He's always there. He's says what he's going to do. He means what he says. You know, I mean, with Scott, you get exactly what you think you're going to get. There's nothing hidden behind the scenes. He is the wizard. That's the best thing I could say about Scott. I mean, you know, he's a good dude. He's just a good dude. He's a good dude. He's honest.
Listen, I appreciate it. I'm blushing now, so we'll end right here. But that's very nice of you to say, because I do my best to do right by people and really act as a fiduciary to them. And so thank you for recognizing that. It's not always easy because people can be awful.
And so, well, yeah, and I mean, you know, and you see, especially, and when they're awful, you're like, I could just fuck you over right here, and like, you know, but I don't see you do that even when you want to.
I'd rather walk away. Life's too short. You know, I want my kids to be able to look at me and see a stand-up guy.
Scott, you can walk away from me anytime.